Welcome back to the Magic Sponge podcast, a miracle cure for all your rugby league and Magic Round injury issues. I'm Brien. I'm the guy behind all the NRL Physio content you see on socials. My co-host, James, mate, we're both here, but I think we're barely here. I think our bodies are here, but our souls are still on the dance floor at the Caxton. It was a big nudge, big weekend, good weekend. How are you feeling, mate? I think it's probably going to be the shortest podcast of our career because I think we're both fading pretty quickly on a Monday night. Apologies to those who had to wait an extra day, but yeah, how you going, mate?
Very well, Brian. It was a god tier weekend. I reckon we sound better than we did last year. Last year, I reckon we had that Suncorp sickness that just rock and rolled us for about 5 weeks. So I don't think we're going that bad. But yeah, it's certainly been a bit of a dusty old start to the Monday morning. But mate, really, honestly, we'll talk about it in a sec. But it was just a belter of a weekend. It's always a god tier weekend on the rugby league calendar. Heaps of fun, heaps of good stories, heaps of laughs. It was all happening.
Yeah, mate. I think I can see our voices slowly deteriorating over the next hour as we rattle on, but it'll be interesting to see, mate. Look, before we get into the injuries, I know everybody's like I'd say we're going to get double listeners tonight, mainly just for a Magic Round wrap up. So I thought we'd just get straight into our highlights, top moments from the weekend. We won't go too long on people, but I do have a few good stories to tell. So, like my favorite moments from the weekend, I have to lead off with on the Caxton downstairs dance floor. It was like 2:00 in the morning on Saturday night. And some dude, you hear about me complain about people like sending me photos of their injuries and all that kind of stuff into the DMs. This dude took his pants off to show me a scar on his hamstring where he'd had
That's good.
surgery.
That's
That
so
like
good.
just full trowel, just straight down. Like, you're back at primary school and you see the kid take their, it was just, I'm like, this is my life now, isn't it? Like anywhere that I go in that, it's just like, I just need to show Brien the weirdest shit on my body and get his opinion on it. So yeah, that was a good little consult there. I've got a shout out to Hectic Fred. Anybody who follows Fred on Instagram, really good fella. But the reason that I'm shouting him out, I met a lot of people over the weekend, but got to talking to him and he was telling me all about his ACL tear that he had. I think it was in the charity match recently. Old Brad Takarangi landed on his knee. But I was just so impressed, mate. He was so knowledgeable. He was talking about, it's only partially torn, so we're going to wait a while, get an MRI, check healing. I might be a coper. All these kind of big physio words, which I love. And I was just like, oh, man, I love seeing an invested patient and someone who wasn't coming to me for advice at 10 o'clock at night. He was just keen to talk about it. And I love that stuff. So got a shout out to him. Not so keen on his mate who was like just in my face about Will Warbrick and then was telling me that I didn't have a physio degree because I couldn't tell him when Will Warbrick was going to come back from
Yeah,
his
that was
complex
unhinged.
concussion. And I'm
That was off
just
its head,
going,
honestly.
this is everything that I hate about
Yeah.
doing NRL Physio. So that was fun. Got a shout out friends of the show, Bundaberg. That we got into the Bundy Bay on Saturday night for what it was a rip snorter of a game. The Tigers and the Dragons, the 100-meter try in the Bundy Bay. One of my great memories. Roasty, NRL Roast. He's a really good fella. Look, you and I, we're not really, I wouldn't say we're all that in the cool crew when it comes to, content creation and all that kind of stuff. We're just two G up physios at the end of the day. Roasty was really good in showing us around, getting us into different places and stuff like that. So got to shout out Roasty because he's a really good fella. So if you see him out, make sure you buy him a beer. Mate, I know you guys weren't enjoying the Broncos Panthers game. You and Rise are both Broncos fans who I was there with, but I wasn't enjoying it even less, I think, because my point of difference, Paul Alamotti, he was my heart pick. I own him in heaps of draft leagues. I'm going to bring him in and watch him absolutely kill it on Magic Round. The guy who I didn't trade in was Fletcher Sharp, who scored 120. The guy who I traded out was Tom Jenkins, who also scored 120. And fucking Paul Alamotti scored 50. And I'm just going, I hated my life. So that's probably the first trade-in I reckon I've done for Magic Round in a long time that just has been an absolute bomb. And it just killed me. It still kills me. You can tell I'm angry about it. But I've got to shout out just all the all the punters and all the listeners who came up to us and just gave us general feedback about how they either like the content on social media or especially the podcast. Like, we kind of treat this as the James and Brien vanity hour on a Sunday night where we get to sit down and talk to each other, which, any, person who's in their 30s or 40s, catching up with your mates is really hard to do at times. So James and I really appreciate this just to catch up with each other, really. But to hear that you guys actually get something out of it, it's enjoyable for you. That meant a lot. So it was really, really good to hear that. So yeah, they were my kind of highlights for the week, mate. You've got some crackers. So let's run through yours as well.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I just would echo your comments about the general feedback. It was really cool talking to a huge amount of different people. I surprisingly, Brian, talked to a lot of undergrad physio students who are sort of in their third and fourth years, and they sort of said, what did you do? How did you go about it? All those sort of things. So it was cool talking sort of shop with people in that sense in a really informal setting. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, really nice feedback. A lot of really good people. Sorry, like I won't remember names and faces for the life of me because it was dim as buggery down at the Caxton and I had a skinful under my belt. So apologies if I don't remember names and faces. But yeah, we had a lot of good chats from that point of view. I think I've got a sort of a top 4 or top 5 here. So the first one is a bit me focused, but I've got to shout out Bitter_RL on Instagram. So he's someone that posts a lot in the jersey space. I got a Chinchilla Bulldogs jersey from him on the Saturday for the first later game. So he hooked me up with the jersey that I'm going to get in the frame for my dad because dad's from Chinchilla, and I've got like a photo of dad, when he was younger and stuff like that, in the Chinchilla Bulldogs kit. So I'm going to try and get that in a frame for his birthday. So yeah, shout out to him. I sort of reached out to him and said, "Oh mate, if I can get this jersey off you, what'll be?" He's like, "Mate, I'll just if you want to do that, I'll just whatever I paid for it, you can just have it." So yeah, had a chat to him with yourself on that Saturday. He's a ripping fella. So
That's what it's all about. It's good
if
stuff.
you don't want to, if you don't want to chase anything, if you're interested in buying jerseys and all that sort of stuff, Bitter_RL, he's an absolute belter of a dude. So get around him for sure. Now onto the stories, Brian. So this is some sick stuff in here. I don't know if I'm going to do this story justice, but basically I want to paint the picture. So we're in the the second tier on the Saturday night, day and night games. And there's a dude in front of us with his, iPhone 14 out with the text pretty big. Like it's very, very visible what's going on here. And this bloke is probably in his late 60s, early 70s.
Yep.
This is not a young guy. And he's sending the most rancid stuff you've ever seen to either a sugar baby or an escort or I don't know who, but it's just filth. And like the guy sitting next to him is pissing himself laughing. This guy's somehow unaware that we can see everything that he's posting. And honestly, some of the stuff that he was sort of sending to this person, we just got on the back of, and it just became a running joke for the rest of the weekend. Like there was sort of just like, I think one of the comments was, she was like, "Oh yeah, I'll catch you up tomorrow. Sounds good." And he was like, "Oh, I'm soaked. I'm absolutely soaked."
So we were soaked all weekend.
And so we were soaked all weekend. It was unbelievable. There was like
OnlyFans shoots.
There was chat about OnlyFans shoots. There was like, "What are you wearing? What does that look like? Oh, that's my favorite. I'm soaked." Like it was unhinged stuff. And he just had no qualms with like getting the phone out, texting away. And everyone around it was like laughing, but he just had no idea. And it just started like an absolute outroar amongst all the friends. So that was top notch. In a similar vein, we were walking down Caxton Street on the Sunday morning, I think, or the afternoon. And we were starting at the top of the hill going down. And obviously, for people that are aware that there's like Kittens at Gentlemen's Club or Entertainment Club, so to speak, is like the strip club at the top of the street. And there was some of the girls were giving out flyers to Kittens, and we saw. So I think it was the guy in front of us. He was probably a guy in his like mid-40s, just a dad with his daughter who was about, I don't know, Brian, like maybe 8 or 9 or something like that. So anyway, this dad's like taking this flyer, obviously completely oblivious that it's about the Rippers.
Thought it was about Magic Round or something.
Yeah, thought it was about Magic Round or some different promo. And anyway, he's got this handout from Kittens, and then he's just gone, "Oh, no." And he's sort of like, "Dad, what's Kittens?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing." So this poor dude is just in panic mode, scrambling, trying to like deflect what Kittens is to his daughter, who is just keen to go along to the footy with her dad. It was unbelievable. Like we were in stitches behind. He didn't pick up that we were laughing about him, but me and you, we were in tears. Like it was just so awkward. It was so good. And like mate, shout out to whoever the girl was giving it the flyer, because that's gutsy. Like, she's just like, oh, here's a guy with his daughter. Yeah, he'll be keen. Like, what on earth was going on there? There was a lot going on from that point of view. I want to shout out in the social space, mate. I know we talked about Roasty. Obviously, like, this is the gold, silver, and bronze medal for me. It was definitely Roasty. Timmy Williams from the SuperCoach SC Playbook, and then also Spy from the SC Playbook. So Tim and Tom Williams, they are top tier for anyone that hasn't met them or spoken to them. Like, seeing Tim and Tom in action at the Caxton, anyone that came up for a chat, they'd shake hands, have a yarn. They're sucking back beers the whole way through it. They are top notch and the best value people you'll ever meet. Same thing with Roasty though. Like, he's a ripping fella as well. And he didn't really know. Neither of them really knew me from a borough, so they sort of knew me through you. So honestly, shout out to them, because they're some of the best in the business. And mate, the very last one was the Caxton dance floor on the Saturday night. It was top notch. It was an absolute belter. When Veronica's Untouched came on, it was like everything just came to fruition. This was about 2:30 in the morning, and me and you were absolutely, I had like you had 4 sets of glasses on, and like it was all going on. It was unbelievable. But yeah, Magic Round, it's in the books again. One of the best. Bring it on next year, Brian. That's all I'll say.
I remember the D floor. I still remember we were in there and we're like, oh, it's getting a bit sweaty. Like, maybe we just go to the front bar and just chill out for a bit. And as we were walking, Untouched came on and we both stared at each other and were like,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
It wasn't even on yet. It was just the initial riff. It was just the then we were like, all right,
yeah.
we're staying. We're not leaving.
You got me. You got me
Yeah,
good.
got me good.
DJ, and I love it. No, look, one of the great weekends. I'm sure that wasn't as funny to most listeners as it was to me and you, those stories, but it just shows you that, yeah, it's a fantastic weekend. It's the one weekend where we let loose. I don't tend to, well, neither of us tend to do that stuff very much anymore. It reminds us of our early 20s, I think, sometimes, but you got to do it every now and then, mate. So it's enjoyable. There'll be the stories that we'll tell for years and years. So it's, good stuff. But look, let's get into the pod. We'll rip through it tonight. So we're on YouTube. Anywhere you get your pods, get into it. You know why you're here. We talk through the injuries. We loop it all back to SuperCoach, fantasy, all that kind of stuff. We also like to educate as well, which is good. So without further ado, let's get into the injury wrap for this week, which is brought to you by Pain Pod, drug-free pain relief anyone can use.
I don't know exactly what he's done. I would have thought it was an ankle, but I'm just guessing.
He shouldn't be out for a long period of time. I mean, I'm no doctor. We have to wait for the scans, obviously, but that'd be more positive than negative.
Round 9 injuries, Brian. I'm sure the listeners are absolutely soaked in anticipation for this round 9 injury report. So we'll start off with the HIAs. We've got 4 names on the list here of note. So Sifa Talakai, Sandon Smith, Tom Weaver, and Corey Horsburgh are obviously sort of entering the protocols. Or are they? I don't actually know. There's a lot going on here with the HIAs. I don't know what's a Cat 1 or a Cat 2 anymore. It seems like the independent doctor and the clubs, there's very little alignment there anymore. I don't know what's doing, Brian. I'm very confused. Let's put it that way.
Mate, in a past life, i.e. in past years, this would be a 10-second segment because it'd be like, well, Sifa Talakai, Sandon Smith, Tom Weaver, Corey Horsburgh all showed very clear signs of concussion. We're all category 1. We'll see them in 11 days, or at least 11 days. But yeah, this year, who knows? I mean, the Corey Horsburgh thing, I emerged from my slumber today to a lot of messages about him because it was at the end of the game. We weren't told, or apparently it wasn't said whether it was category 1 or category 2 or whether he passed or failed and all that kind of stuff. So it's a bit of a mystery. Then all of a sudden, footage started coming out of Horsburgh on the beers post-match, which for anybody playing along at home, drinking after suffering a concussion, massive no-no, not something that you want somebody to be doing. So I kind of put a message in the broadcast channel on Instagram and Facebook being like, look, he's on the beers. It's not diagnostic. It's not medical, but very unlikely to see him on the beers. Canberra would let him be on the beers if he just suffered a concussion. But then I got word that the independent doctor did deem him category 1. Mate, and once again, we say this year is just tossed it out the window, but he looked category 1, mate. He was all over the shop. It was like he got knocked senseless. He got up onto his haunches and then fell over it, to the side. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know whether Canberra are going to challenge what's going on here. Yeah, mate. Who knows? Like, I've been speaking to people in and around the comp, and it's people involved with different areas in around this, and I was glad this week, especially with Magic Round. You're kind of talking to a few people and meeting up with a few people while on Magic Round, and it's good to know that we're not the only ones who have noticed a change, like particularly this year, but last year a little bit as well, because I feel like the urgency around this kind of stuff, the explanation, the communication, the stats, everything, it's just all gone to the wayside. I feel like it just isn't there anymore. There's a lot more guys challenging, getting off. Like, I reckon the first 2 or 3 years we saw 1 or 2. Now we're seeing them every second week. You know, the independent doctors, to be honest with you, where I'm at the moment, I'm not really sure why we have the independent doctors, because they don't, their word very rarely sticks. It just seems to all be back on the clubs. And like, I mean, if you want to put it all back on the clubs, I'm not overly against that. But like, why have an independent doctor then? Why have them if they're, what they assess and what they do isn't gonna really stick. So yeah, I mean, Corey Horsburgh is probably the most SuperCoach relevant guy. I would assume it's more likely than not that you're not going to have him next week. But yeah, I think the HIA segment for us, James, moving forward, and we've said this time and time again, it's just going to be flip a coin, buy a lotto ticket, see what you think, because there's just, the whole system, I don't care what anyone says, it is absolutely changed. It's like the urgency around it, the clarity around it, it's just changed. It's all different, particularly this year, and I don't think different for the better either. But yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see until someone more important, way more important than us, because we have absolutely no influence whatsoever. But hopefully, one of the journos or somebody picks it up at some point, because I think it's something that needs to be covered soon.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting watch, mate. Like, part of my brain goes even to like RLPA. Like, I don't know if there's even like, do they sort of just step in and go like, what is actually going on here? Because there's just not this consistent approach. I don't know. I don't know where it sort of ends up. It'll be, like you said, an interesting watch with people that are a bit above our pay grade. So we'll go through the injury list for the teams now, Brian. Sharks v Eels. We've got Kade Dykes. He was injured in the grade below with a serious knee injury. He's probably going to be out for the rest of the season, isn't he, poor Kade Dykes?
Yeah, missed him last week, so I just wanted to include him. Just wanted to give him a big shout out. So he ruptured his patella tendon, which is the tendon that attaches the bottom of your kneecap down to your tibia or your shin bone, in the opposite knee to the knee where he's had an ACL Rico and a cartilage, shout out Arthrex. He had a bit of a cartilage regeneration procedure almost in his other knee. So yeah, just like thoughts are with Dykes, another massive knee injury. These patella tendon ruptures are, you saw Connor Watson, like he kind of initially when he ruptured his, he was like, yep, I'm going to be back in 20 weeks. And that would have been like, I think before round 20 of that year, and his recovery just kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. It's a really, really tough rehab and tough to get back to top performance straight away. So yeah, thoughts with Kade Dykes. Hopefully he gets through it well, but yeah, rough trot for him.
Yeah, especially off the back of the ACL. No doubt about that. Roosters versus Dolphins was the next one. So Maxi Plath with a foot surgery. This was a pre-game rule out. And then Connelly Lemuelu with the eye injury out of this week, Brian.
Yeah, mate. I initially heard that Plath was going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, so I was kind of a bit surprised to hear that he was only going to miss a week or two. So he's had foot surgery once again. There's been no clarity here on what's going on. Like it was reported as a plantar fascia issue the first night, but then we've heard nothing since. So I wonder whether it's even like a plantar fascia release surgery, James. Like where they go in and they say it's too painful for him, because it was described by someone as a pain management issue. So I don't know whether it was like, like a really big partial tear and they've just gone, screw it, let's go in, completely cut it. I know that sounds pretty extreme to most people, but it is something where when you cut it, you release kind of the pain and then you can let that scar up and you rehab it from there. You wear an orthoses in your shoe to kind of give it support that arch usually provides. So it's something, I mean, in the olden days, what you used to have is people suffering from like a plantar fasciitis or a partial tear in the plantar fascia, is they used to jump off tables and land on that foot to try and tear it completely, because they knew once they tore it completely, it would hurt in the moment, but then that partial tear, that in like that constant inflammation or irritation would go away quicker. And then Connelly Lemuelu with for Max Plath, he'll miss, I think, 3 to 4 weeks is what they said, which is probably pretty standard.
Origin in doubt for sure, yeah.
Yeah, correct. I wouldn't see him in Origin, I don't think. And then Connelly Lemuelu, I just saw that he did have a bit of puffing around his eye, and I think he had a facial fracture earlier in the year. He did come off before the end of the game, whether that was planned or something there, just something to keep an eye on.
For sure. Bunnies versus Knights was the next one. So, unfortunately for the Bunnies, Jack Wighton was a calf injury, so he was ruled out for multiple weeks with a moderate grade strain there by the look of things. Kalyn Ponga's worth mentioning here. He's been nursing the rib or shoulder complaint there. That was a pre-game injury update there for Kalyn Ponga. Then out of the game, Jye Gray was reported as a thigh cork. Pete Mamouzelos was a dislocated elbow. And Greg Marzhew, I think from the bleachers here, mate, I almost thought it was a hip pointer, but it's been reported as a rib injury, but they're probably going to manage that fairly similarly. He's pretty relevant for fantasy, isn't he, Greg Marzhew?
Yeah, I'd say either way, whether it's a rib or he seemed to be clutching at the rib when I went back and reviewed the footage today. But rib cartilage, hip pointer, pretty similar in that they're pain management issues. They're quite easy to aggravate. But I would say from what I observed, at the ground, although this was the first game of the day, mate, so we were okay at this point in time, and we did notice he was struggling with something. I reckon he got in and got needled at halftime because he looked a lot better.
He did, you're right, yeah.
In the second half compared to the first.
Yeah.
So I reckon he's gone in, copped a needle, come back out. So it's just with Greg, it's probably something that he's just an increased risk of aggravation over the next couple of weeks, but not something that I'd sit him. They're playing the Titans this week. So
wheels up.
Wheels up. So yeah, he might have an aggravation here or there, but nothing that I'd be jumping off or anything like that. Jye Gray with a thigh cork, he was a heavy knee. I just checked it before we came on here. So right into the meat of that thigh, apparently in the same spot as last week. So he copped a cork last week as well. Cork on top of a cork. I usually say, look, very unlikely to miss time with a cork, but here, one on top of the other, that's going to be pretty sensitive, pretty bruised, those kind of things, right in the middle of the quad. So you need that for, good function with your running. I just wouldn't be surprised to see him sit this week. It's not something that is likely to rule him out for multiple weeks, but just give him the week off to let it settle. The big one, the most brutal injury of the week was Pete Mamouzelos. He had that dislocated elbow that they couldn't get back in on the field. And even in the sheds, I think post-match Wayne Bennett had sort of said that they couldn't, there was talk they couldn't even get it in back there. So hopefully he didn't need to go hospital and go under to get it put in or anything like that. The big thing with dislocated elbows, usually looking at 3 to 6 week return to play. So we've seen players like Sean Fensom, absolute man, he's just a psychopath. He came back in the week after dislocating his elbow because they just strapped it up. So he's kind of here. So he wasn't able to bend or straighten and it was just stuck there. So I doubt we're going to see Pete Mamouzelos next week because it was a pretty nasty dislocation. So usually 3 to 6 weeks. The only thing that would push it beyond 6 weeks is if he's got a fracture. So if there's also an associated fracture there, and that could be a reason that it doesn't go back in. You can have a fracture where the bone kind of blocks the joint. The fractured bone blocks the joint from going back into place. So that's a potential as well. That could extend it out. But at the moment, I'm thinking that 3 to 6 weeks. Jack Wighton with the calf, mate, we've said it time and time again, usually it's a small sample size, only the first 10 weeks of the year, but far out. Souths, they've got to be scrambling in their, their performance department at this point in time to try and change things, figure out what's going on, because there has just been way too many soft tissue strains going on. People always ask, what can they do? How can they change things? It's a pretty impossible question to answer from the outside looking in. And to be honest with you, it's probably a pretty hard question to answer from the inside looking out as well, because I'm sure if they could change it, they'd do it, right? But so probably they're going to have to change some loading things or something to do with their training to try and get this soft tissue strain incidence rate to come down. And then Kalyn Ponga, interestingly, so all the talk was about he had that rib cartilage issue from last week where he got rocked. But I heard from someone over the weekend that he actually had been getting needles for a shoulder issue as well for the past 3-4 weeks. So, look, there's a bit of mystery going on there with KP. he's another one where these are both just pain tolerance issues. Potentially, it could have limited his performance a little bit over the last month or so, but I think it was more to do with the Knights' attack, personally. Like, I don't think his run numbers have been down, but correct me if I'm wrong there, but I remember someone in the SuperCoach game said to me over the weekend that his run numbers have been pretty similar. It's just overall his attack and involvement hasn't been as good. So, I think moving forward, you approach him as is. If you want to buy him, I think he's still a good buy, even though Origin's coming up, because they've got, I think, 2 really, really soft games between now and then. So if you want to play a bit of fullback roulette, I don't mind that. What about you, mate? No concerns with Ponga? Pretty happy?
Yeah, happy with him in the Supercoach setups, that's for sure. So they've got the Titans this week and Eels and next week going into Origin there. So you can't, you wouldn't trade him out, that's for sure. And I think it's a fair point to trade him in because he could go, over 100 for these 2 matchups for sure. And at price, I think he's only priced in at 550 after this week, isn't he, or something like that? So he's very affordable. As a sideways move via the flex position, if you want to go that way as well, would be my way around that. Warriors versus Cowboys was next on the slate. So 3 Warriors boys here. Ali Leiataua with an ankle. That was sort of talked about pre-game. Rocco Berry with a hamstring injury and Ed Cossey with a shoulder injury out of this one, Brien. Do we have much info to go off here? I think this was one of the games that I recall snippets, but I wasn't paying a huge amount of attention. There was a lot going on. It's good game, but I was just like, it's one of those ones where I was like, what actually happened in there? Can't remember.
Yeah, so Cossey it looked like an AC that he kind of, played through. So they said he's in doubt, so it might be a moderate to high grade, which we can see guys play through. Once again, get a needle or something like that. So he might miss a week or 2, if anything. Rocco Berry's more the concern with the hamstring. It definitely did look like a strain to me. So 2 to 4 weeks minimum, potentially longer. He looked pretty limited with it as he was trying to play through for a couple of minutes. And then Leiataua, there wasn't much information on his ankle injury, so we'll just have to wait for more, which is pretty rare to get from the Warriors. So we'll see how we go.
Watch and wait on that one. Tigers v Dragons next. This was a cracking good game, actually. Starford To'a, you obviously mentioned him in the broadcast channel pre-game because there was a lot of inbox messages about him before the game, being like, "Hey champ, what's going on with Starford To'a?" It's been reported as a neck injury. I haven't had too much more on it than that, but I think the other ones to speak to, Brien, will be Emre Guler with a dislocated shoulder, Brent Naden with a knee concern, and Toby Couchman with a burner. Probably not expecting too much time there for Toby Couchman. If it's just a burner, that should be something that Supercoach rosters shouldn't have to worry about.
Yeah, no, he came back out in the second half. It was just worth mentioning because I think people freaked out. They were mentioning pins and needles or numbness or something like that as he was going into halftime. Had a bunch of messages about that, but no, not overly concerned about Couchman. Stafford To'a, or all the different spelling. Stafford actually reached out to me. Funny, I posted that thing and he's like, "Is my name really that hard to spell?" And I'm like, "Mate, I don't know what to tell you. It was even worse the further I scrolled down." So, minor neck injury, only expected to miss 1 to 2 weeks. So last week and potentially this week as well. Minor issue. Emre Guler with dislocated shoulder. They're expecting him to miss at least a month. So opens up, some minutes in the Dragons pack there. And I think the thing here is that even though he's going to miss a month, a bit like all the guys who talk about the dislocated shoulder, it's not guaranteed that he'll come back after that month, or it's also not guaranteed that he'll last the rest of the season as well. These dislocated shoulders, they're ticking time bombs, as we've spoken about in the past, where, he could try rehab for 4 weeks and then decide, no, we definitely need a reconstruction surgery. So yeah, some uncertainty there for sure. I think, is it Hamish Stewart started at lock there on the weekend, so it could be some extra opportunity for him there. So yeah, I think that's interesting from a physio perspective. The Brent Naden one is one that we called really, really well, I think, mate. He had that brutal patella dislocation in the preseason that we were both really surprised that he didn't need, some sort of surgical intervention, because it well and truly dislocated, and it would have been a shock if his MPFL, which is the ligament on the inner side of the kneecap, wasn't torn. And we spoke about it at the time. We said, look, you can go conservative with these and come back in 6 weeks, but the like re-aggravation, re-dislocation rate is really high. And he just seemed to struggle with this knee for much of the final 10 minutes he was on the field. It was the same knee. So I'm assuming that this might be me talking out of turn, but it certainly looked like an aggravation. There wasn't a massive mechanism there that made any more sense. He had that knee heavily strapped and he was kind of like fiddling around with it and stuff like that. So I'd say his kneecap is still unstable. If this is a second instability event, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they do go the surgery route, which would be 3 months, which would be a big hit. So, I mean, hopefully it's only a subluxation and they can kind of keep it going. But I wasn't too pleased to see that for Brent Naden. Anything from the Dragons pack that you can think of, mate? Probably Hamish Stewart, the biggest call there.
Yeah, I think it even just firms up Toby Couchman as well. He's been unbelievable for Supercoach purposes. And I think some people would have been like, oh, maybe not, But I think that just firms him up as a season-long keeper. I think for standard and drafts, he's been unbelievable. Hamish Stewart as well, like you said. But I do think Toby Couchman, that makes him a pretty interesting watch for me because I don't know what his ownership is in standard. I'm not going to look that up right now, but he'd be one that I'd be eyes on for sure as a player of interest. Titans versus Bulldogs was the next game here. So before the game, Jojo Fifita was ruled out with an infection of some description, and Bronson Xerri with that sort of shoulder contact injury mechanism. It was hard to tell exactly what we're dealing with there from a shoulder perspective for Xerri. Hey, he played out the rest of the game regardless. Probably unlucky not to score a bit more for Supercoach purposes as well.
Yeah, once again, first game of the day, so we were probably at our freshest. So we were actually doing a bit of injury analysis for this one, I remember, from the stands at the time, because he had, we were speculating on like AC joint versus like a burner, because he did seem to get hit in the head as well. So whether that like clamped down on the nerves and those kind of things, but he played out the game. So very unlikely to be anything too major there. And then, mate, the infections continue. Another one, Jojo Fifita. It's infecting a lot of guys around there. So hopefully he's all right.
Hopefully he's back for next week. So Panthers v Broncos was the next game. Was a difficult watch for yours truly. So Dylan Edwards, this is big implications for Origin and Supercoach. Hamstring injury there. I haven't heard much on grading. And then the only other name was Xavier Willison. He just couldn't get back on the field with a leg cork. We were sort of hosing Madge Maguire for the bench rotation, but it looked like that was a forced change rather than a planned change when he came off. It was like 1 or 2 minutes into the second half, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were losing our mind at the time. I remember we were like, what?
Profanity everywhere. Oh my God.
Because we were just starting to warm into the day, I think, at this. And, you boys were up and about because the Bronx were playing. And I was cheering on Paul to try and score a try. Xavier came off a minute. And, it was going back, it looked like a cork mechanism. They strapped him up and he tried to run it out. They didn't even send him. He went to go down the tunnel and they actually pulled him back. And they're like, no, you get on the bike. So that's something where it's like, try and keep it warm, because as soon as that cork cools down, you're cooked. You're not going to get back out there. And that's the problem with corks. So cork, he might miss a week at most, but I would say more than likely it will be a short turnaround for the Bronx playing on the Sunday. But I'd say he's still more like I'd maybe put him at 60-40 or 70-30 to play. So better chance than not. Dylan Edwards of the hamstring, they kind of said post-game that it was just a cramp or just awareness or, something like that. I think the biggest thing with Dylan Edwards is he just has that extensive history. He's got multiple hamstring issues over the time. I think he even had some hamstring tightness earlier this season as well that was reported on. So, I'm not super confident on him. I don't think it's anything that's going to rule him out of Origin as of today, but certainly I think re-injury risk over the next couple of weeks, particularly with his history and now a couple of hamstring niggles over this season. I'd be a little bit nervous, for him at this point in time, and probably, to throw to you for the Supercoach stuff, I'd actually be a little bit nervous if I was a Teddy owner, because, potentially Dylan Edwards could have a hammy issue here, rule him out of contention for Origin 1, which would mean that Teddy would step in, which would be a big blow.
Yeah, it would be. I'm a Teddy owner, and geez, he's been good since bringing him in. He's been unbelievable. So hopefully, for my sake, then Dylan Edwards going to get back on the field for this game coming up against the Cowboys and go well and firm himself up for Origin. I'd be shocked if he didn't get the jersey for game 1, but you never know. Laurie Daly's got fresh set of eyes. He'll have different ideas compared to Madge last year. So yeah, be one to watch and see for sure. last game of the round, what a belter of a game this was, Brian. Like this was up and about areas for everyone involved in the crowd. Storm v Raiders, drama deluxe, like selling candy deluxe. We had Suafalo on a string. It was good to watch. But the only injury concern is Jerome Hughes with a shoulder. I can't remember seeing mechanism with this one, mate, to be fair. I was just like yelling and screaming for people to get sent off in sin bin, and just the general carry on for Golden Point was what I was getting up and around. So, yeah, what happened with Jerome Hughes? Do you know?
Yeah, he aggravated that AC joint that he had a couple of weeks
yeah.
ago. So landed on it again. He looked pretty cooked at the time. So yeah, I think the biggest thing here, aggravation risk moving forward. Like, do they, the difference this year with the way things are going, I don't know whether they can afford to, because they're not sitting pretty at the top of the ladder, right? Like they need to win games. So I think they're going to have to find ways to get Jerome Hughes out there. So yeah, he's going to be an aggravation risk moving forward. He's had one on top of the other now. So that's always a concern. But yeah, I think for the moment, I think they're going to have to keep pushing him out there. They do have Wishart there, and it's not a massive drop-off as much as some other clubs potentially. But yeah, definitely a bit of a concern for not only a Storm, but yeah, anyone who owns him moving forward.
Yeah, most definitely. They've got they do have a week turnaround for the Sunday game coming up against the West Tigers, so you'd be fingers crossed that he would get on the field for that. But yeah, always a bit of a wait and see there. You'd want to hope the Storm bounce back, because they like you probably feel hard done by, actually, to be fair. I mean, it was funny as a neutral, but if I was a Storm fan, I'd be absolutely livid, to be fair. I know a couple of people who follow them closely that were spewing, so bad luck for them. Right, Brian, we've covered off all the injuries there. Let's launch into the questions. So thank you to everyone for submitting these through the broadcast channel as per usual. Question number one, Brian, I'm a physio student, so I followed the coverage of the Sharks NRLW job closely last week. Is this a common thing to see in professional sporting sense, or is this a one-off situation, do you think?
Yeah, so anyone who didn't follow along with this, the Sharks advertised a assistant physio, so not a physio assistant. Physio assistant is a totally different thing. An assistant physio is a physiotherapist who is second in command to the head physio, effectively. So you're still talking about a fully qualified physiotherapist. They advertised initially, like it was listed under the volunteer role of this specific site. It didn't have any mention of any remuneration or any, pay or anything like that. I believe the way that it went down is it got picked up. It went viral on Physio LinkedIn, which I'm not on LinkedIn, James. So I'm not a big LinkedIn guy, but apparently the physios over there picked it up, blew up about it. Heaps of people complained to the APA. The APA came out and had a crack at the Sharks and said, you need to, you can't do this. So the Sharks then put in that they have a honorarium, which is, it's still a volunteer role, but then they can pay you. They will negotiate an honorarium, which is effectively like a payment of some amount that, you don't know what it is, and we'll see, what they negotiate and those kind of things. So, mate, unfortunately for this physio student, it's pretty common to see in pro sports. This is, in my eyes, it's a way that, pro sports or anyone, in any industry who pays people like this. I mean, there is an award wage or an award rate for physiotherapists, which is the minimum wage that you can pay physios for roles that aren't volunteer roles. This is a way to kind of get around that. And I think the Sharks have since come out and said it's going to be a competitive salary and those kind of things. But I mean, look, going off my DMs during that time, the number of messages that I got from physios, young physios, older physios who'd been through it and been like, I've been on the same one. There was three who'd worked for NRLW clubs last year. One was like, it came out to $7 an hour. She got paid for that year. Another one, it was $2,000 for the year. And it was, a role of 20 hours a week, and you're getting $2,000 for that time. So yeah, it's something that I think should improve. I said as much at the time. I think, yeah, it's, we always talk about, we sit in the middle between, we always talk about physios thinking they're way more important than they are, right? And I know there's plenty in our industry who are like that. But this is one instance where, like, the likes of yourself and myself, we're saying, like, you are important. You deserve to be paid. And the minimum wage for physios isn't much. It's like 28, like $27, $28 an hour. Like, it's not huge bickies, James. So, like, you guys deserve, and this is to the guys who are working in sport. You guys deserve to be paid for the shit kicker jobs. You still deserve to get paid. And I will stand by that. For anybody, whoever questions how NRL and NRLW clubs feel about me, this all went down. And as I said, it went viral on Physio, LinkedIn. They all reported. I didn't report anyone to APA, nothing. I didn't mention the Sharks when I was talking about it. I gave one quote, I think, to Code Sports, and I just said, good on the APA for chasing this up, blah, blah, blah. I get a message just before Magic Round from a member of the Sharks performance staff saying, we need to have a chat. And I was like, oh, what do you want to have a chat about? I'm not really interested in copping a roast. I've copped many roastings in the past. And he's like, oh, no, well, I'm not going to give you a roast, but I have plenty of questions for you about this. And I'm like, mate, why do you have questions for me? I'm not the one who's in the shit. Like, all I've done is talk and say that people deserve to get paid for what they do. But apparently I was the one. I needed to be put on trial and I just told them to get bent because I've got no, but yeah, I just think people in those things they've obviously benefited from this system, and people who are in NRL clubs and NRLW clubs will say this is a great system because they are still there. But for every one of those, it looks like there are, 6, 7, 8, 10 people who have been chewed up and spat out by that system and only been paid $7 an hour for it. And I've got the DMs to prove it. And I'm just one guy. So yeah, unfortunately it is a common occurrence. A long way to answer that question, but it's a thing that I'm passionate about. I think as much as I think there's many physios out there who think they're way better than they are, you also deserve to get paid, and that's in any industry. Like you deserve to get paid for your time. You cannot take experience or exposure to the bank and pay your bills. You just can't do it. So you deserve to get paid for your worth, and so yeah, don't accept anything less. To this physio student, I think just don't accept anything less than at least minimum wage. And I don't think that's a controversial thing to say, James.
Doesn't seem super controversial to me, Brian, just to say, oh, people, if they're giving their time to something, should be paid, at least a award. I don't think that's a red hot take, to be honest. It doesn't seem too spicy to me. But
I need to answer questions, mate.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. You've been put on trial here as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, of course. But no, I don't think there's anything else I'd add to that, mate. I think it's a good one. Like, I think it's hard enough to get through physio as a student anyway. Like you have to work hard to get through the degree, and you have to work hard to get through the placements. And then I think once you have the piece of paper which says you're competent at this thing and you're on your way in your professional journey, I think you do have to be cautious about these sort of things and talk to people in the industry and things like that. So, I think if this situation resolves and it just, increases the playing field for everyone else, that's good. The one thing I will add in, maybe, Brian, I don't know, this might be a bit of a controversial take, but it's interesting that this happens with the NRLW setting. Would this happen in the NRL setting? I don't know if you got DMs to that degree or not, but I hope it's not a thing that happens for the girls that are trying to, do this thing professionally more so than the men as well. Like, I think that's,
it does happen it does happen across. I would say
Yeah,
I'm more
okay.
like it's more common in the women's game from the chats that I've been having, but it's a common thing as you get higher up because they say, look, this is going to look great on your resume. This is going to be great experience. And all of those things are true. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of these places are not short of a buck. I would almost be more okay with this if this is I would be more okay with it if it was community sport, and you were given, but these are $multi-million clubs and the department itself might have a budget, but I'm not having a crack at the department itself if it doesn't fit in your budget. I'm having a crack at the people who are setting that budget because you're not short of a buck. The grants that you get from the NRL every year, you're not short of a buck, and you can afford to pay like physios $28 an hour. You just can. Yeah.
Nice stuff. We'll move on to question number 2, mate. So Desi Hasler has said that Jaden Campbell is a chance to return either this week or next week. What are your thoughts on his performance if he does come back soon?
Yeah, mate, Des has sold me right up the river here. So I apologise to anybody who I said he's a trade, because like Des went from at the start of that game, pre-game, he said 1 to 2 weeks, and then post-match he said no, 4 to 5 weeks. And then the the Titans came out with an official thing saying 4 to 5 weeks. So I'm like, well, it's going to be 4 to 5 weeks. It must be a pretty significant high ankle sprain for it to be 4 to 5 weeks. So I said, sell, performance implications, all those kind of things. But now he's come out after Campbell's missed 2 weeks and he says he's coming back, or he's a chance to return next week. So yeah, look, I apologize in one sense, and then the other sense, I'm like, I don't know what more I could have done there, because I just think this is Des shenanigans at its finest. It obviously wasn't as bad as they were letting on. I mean, his performance, if he's coming back in 2 weeks, like it's one of two things. He's either coming back too early and he won't quite be 100%, or it was nowhere near as bad as they were saying, and he'll be okay. It was just a minor high ankle sprain. So I wish I had more to give on this, but there's just been way too much uncertainty on it. Like I haven't even seen like footage of whether he's been in a boot, how long he's been in a boot for, like that kind of thing. That would be something that would give me more information potentially. Is he still in a boot up to this week, and now they're getting him out of the boot and trying to rush him through his rehab, that kind of thing. So yeah, Jaden Campbell isn't someone who I'd necessarily be buying, but if I'm a holder, you still hold. But yeah, I'll be eyeing off maybe a Cam Munster to Jaden Campbell trade, in 2 to 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah, I think to your point, is he coming back too quickly, or is he coming back, under time, or is it just way less serious? We just have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's a risky, prospect either which way you sort of cut it up, I think, Brian, from that point of view. So I think you're probably going to see performance impacts if I had to put money on it. We saw that with Tristan Saylor last year, who came back off the tightrope surgery in record time, but he didn't look great when that did happen. So I think you probably got to, probably it's not sort of a captaincy option for me, even though they've got that early Friday game. I think you just steer clear of that for Jaden Campbell. I think you find other options for captaincy or vice captaincy options, to be totally honest. And if he does come out and score 170, then I will eat my words on this podcast in a week. So hold me over the barrel for that one. Question number 3, Brian, another Titan. How long until Keanu Keeney might be back in the fold?
Yeah, so we spoke about this for like a minimum 3 months, but like from the surgery date. But like with a young guy like him, they're potentially going to leave him longer. So I would say around like 17 to 18 at the earliest. But I had him in 2 draft leagues and I dropped him in both. So I'm not overly fussed on Keeney this year. If we hear some really positive stuff in about a month's time, then maybe I'll think about kind of, getting back on that train. But from a draft perspective, there's just, especially over buys, if you play buys, it's just too much going on. No thanks for me. What about you?
It sounds good. Yeah, I'm exactly the same, mate. I think I'd be looking for next year, to be honest. I doubt there'll be any incentive for them to get him out there. I don't think the Titans are going to be contenders, let's be honest. Like they're not sort of on the up and up this season. It sort of looks like it's going down the gurgler pretty quickly. When you got, Dave Fifita playing for the Ipswich Jets, you're probably not having a real good season there, are you, for the Gold Coast? So I don't think you'll see him, back at his flying best this year. Next question is about Leiataua. Would you stay away from buying Leiataua, given he's got a finger or medial knee injury that he's playing through? He will have a higher re-injury risk with those things, won't he, Brian?
Oh yeah, like a little bit, but I'm not staying away from him at all. He's been playing through it, and he's still been like, I think he scored low in the games when he suffered the MCL injury. So that's probably brought his price down a little bit. But I think on the weekend he base powered like 70 something. He's locked and loaded. He's my trade this week. Spoiler alert for SuperCoach Corner. So no hesitations. MCL is mainly contact anyway. So yeah, buy for me.
Yeah, he's a gun, best second rower, like not origin eligible, like wheels up, get him in. Yep. Next question is about the wingers that have had hamstring injuries, Brian. So Brian To'o, Joel Skelton, and Alex Johnston there. Any updates on those guys in terms of returns? Yeah,
so To'o said that he's aiming to return this week. They might hold him back an extra week because obviously this is his second hamstring issue for the season. But yeah, this week or next week. So we'll find out if Tom Jenkins keeps his spot, and we'll find out if my boy Paul Alamotti keeps his right wing spot, although he would have been better if he was on the left wing. Who could have picked that? James playing outside. Luke Garner was oh man, I'm still
Fancy
angry.
goal mine out there, mate.
I'm still angry about it. I'm still angry about it. God damn it. But anyway, Skelton, round 13 for Skelton. It's his re-injury, right? And this is your perfect example of like a re-injury. They always take longer. So he's been out for several weeks now. Round 13 for him. And then Alex Johnson, there's been no indication on him. So not sure.
Yeah, good updates there, mate. Next one's about Jamie Humphries. Question is, I've held Jamie Humphries for this long. If he's back in round 10, would you keep holding him, even though he's got a break even of 99? Yes, the Broncos, Warriors, Tigers for the next 3 games, and this person doesn't have Nico Hines yet. I'd be looking at Nico ASAP. Let's be very fair there.
That's just yeah. I mean, unless you have massive other fires to put out, and Teamless Tuesday dishes up something weird tomorrow, you find a way to do Humphries to Nico 1000%.
Yep. 100%. Couldn't agree more. Next question is about Joey Lussick. When's he back from his thumb injury? Are you concerned he might take minutes off Riley Smith, who's been getting pretty good minutes in the 9 position there for Para?
Yeah, round 11 for Joey Lussick is the approximate. So just before Origin there. Look, like I wouldn't be running to bring in Riley Smith from a Supercoach perspective because, yeah, my gut kind of says, like, he's still been playing good minutes, but I just don't know. Maybe if you bring him in as a second hooker and you're just going to plonk him there and just leave him for the year. Because I think by the back end of the year, like he's their best hooker. So he's got to demand those big minutes. But I think maybe over Origin, there might be some times and Para seemed like they're going to lose some games. And do we see some rotations? We've seen their bench change a bazillion times so far this season, right? Like guys are rolling in and out because every time you look at their New South Wales Cup side, it's almost as good a forward pack as their NRL side. They've got heaps of depth, but they just keep rolling through. So I think there's a bit of uncertainty there around it. So yeah, I don't think Riley Smith is an obvious buy as you would think. I wouldn't buy him counting on like heaps of cash, but probably as someone who can get through in a pinch and by the back end of the season should be playing like 70, 80 minutes every week, I would think.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't add anything on top of that, mate. I think you've summed up all the points there. That's good. Next question, Brian, is about players. When they get burners from tackles, do they get any long-term damage as part of those?
Yeah, it's quite rare. I mean, if you get a burner that comes from the neck, so if there's like a bulging disc or something like that, we've seen Adam Reynolds need surgery on his neck for like repeated burners and that kind of thing. So yes, but it takes a while for that to accumulate. If you're talking out in the shoulder, the main thing I would say is it's not necessarily damage as such. It's more just a lower threshold for injury. So it means that it doesn't take as much. Those nerves are more sensitive to force. So it doesn't take as much to kind of set off that burner is the way I would see. But there's a reason guys stay on the field after having them because the long-term implications aren't that bad.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time to shake it off, but usually there's no long-term implications. What about the Finns, Brian? What do you need to do for the Finns to improve? What are the key areas?
Mate, they need middle forwards. I think their middle is like, look, they put all the eggs in the Tom Flegler, Tom Gilbert baskets. And I think that's just for, different reasons. I think Flegler, people keep asking about him. He's not until next year, if at all. And that's the big thing we keep saying, like it's still uncertain. So yeah, like that's a big blow. And then Gilbert, I love Gilbert and I love the vibes and he's a great captain and all those kind of things. But even like I was saying, talking to a few people over the weekend, I think personally, anyone who's talking about Gilbert for Origin, that is completely a vibes pick because as somebody who has watched Gilbert play this year, great vibes, performance, not that great, but you expect that coming off not playing for 2 years. He had the embolism in his lungs, that delayed his surgery. So he's coming back right on round 1. You expect him back to his best next year, but this year is a bit of a, his lateral mobility seems to be a bit limited at this point in time. So, yeah, I just think we need middles. I don't think Frank Molo is the answer. I don't think Kenny Bromwich is the answer. So, yeah, middles. I'm happy with everyone else, even my boy Cody, mate. Yeah, as you know, I've supported him heavily since the days at the Bronx as a bit of a heart pick. I think he's made a really good fist to 6 so far this year. So, yeah, just give me some middle forwards, and then we'll win the premiership.
Yeah, I think the only other one I'd add is like just the yardage game from the back three.
Yeah.
There was a couple of times where, Bostock got folded in goals and, even Jermaine is a gun, and I love Jermaine Asako, but he's not going to do heaps and heaps and heaps of carries. Hamiso is not that sort of guy as well. And when you look at some of those teams like Penrith, they got guys that carry and just are like, all right, I want to just truck nut here for the good of the team. I think it does make a difference when you got those sort of guys in the team. I think the Broncos are a little bit lacking in that area as well. I think from a back three punch perspective. What about from Magic Round weekend, Brian? The next one is who was the best on ground for all the podcasters or content creators or social guys and girls over the weekend? Who do you want to put up in lights here?
Mate, I think we said it all before. I think like Roasty, absolute legend, Timmy and Spy. I think if you're going like best on ground, it might just nudge to Spy, though. Clem from the Supercoach playbook, she was there all 3 nights, still killing it, I think, till early in the morning on Monday. So shout out to her. And then the big guy I want to shout out to, Jack Cronin. He's Caesar's Palace on Instagram and does a bit of stuff with the Better Beer Boys. So good to see him. He moved down from the second tier down into the rain in the Raiders game to get front row down the end, and he was on the telecast as what's the fullback's name?
Kate Weeks, yeah.
Kate Weeks is scoring the try, and here's Cronin in the front row just losing his mind. That's one of for me, if I ever had that experience, that would be an all-time footy memory for me. That would cause me so much joy. So it was just good to see. Good to see Jack having a good win. I liked it when the Raiders win for Jack and for Campo as well. So it was good to see those boys getting up and about. Have you got any to add, or just those guys?
No, I was just going to say, like the goals for me were probably like it's hard to split Roasty and Timmy Williams. They were probably the gold medalists, to be honest. Like they were just box office, and honestly, the nicest people you'll ever meet, like without a shadow of a doubt. So yeah, shout out to those probably 2 guys in particular from my point of view. Last question, Brian, is this person saw a cardboard cutout of Kalyn Ponga's head on the Lord Alfred dance floor on Saturday night. Which player's cutout head would you want on the dance floor with you for Magic Round? This is very niche.
This is great. I had to include it because this is a good question. I'm going Valence Tafare, mate. I don't even care that he's not even in the NRL anymore. That's who I'd want on the dance floor with me. Who are you taking?
It feels like blasphemous to say this, but I want Alfie Langer. Just like inherent like party mode, safety. He looks like the 4X man. There's a lot of good vibes, but he's a Caxton guy, so I feel bad putting him on the LA floor. But I think Alfie is Brisbane. Alfie is Magic Round.
He's Caxton Street.
He's
the whole
eternal.
street.
He's the Prince of Caxton Street. Let's put that out there. Yeah, so be Alfie.
I love it, mate. 100%. All right, Supercoach Corner, let's hit it. Look, good weeks for everyone. I don't think there was anyone who did poorly this week, it seems. I think the winner scored like 1,900 points or something like that for the week. So just absolutely ridiculous. What'd you do this week, and what are your plans moving forward? It seems like a bit of a boring week, to be honest.
Yeah, it does seem a bit of a boring week. I scored 1553. It looks like a stupidly big score, doesn't it? But in the context of the week, it's sort of probably like a bit above average, I suppose, but not much higher than that. I looped James Tedesco, so I was pretty lucky. I got second game in and was like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy the weekend now. I went a bit vibey. I said this to you midweek, Brian. I was going to trade in Jesse Ramian and Connor Tracy at centre wing, so I traded them in for Tom Jenkins and Shibasaki for a bit of Magic Round vibe. So, the Jenkins thing, who saw that coming, where he just scored bulk points.
No, but Luke Garner, mate. Like he was playing, it was obvious.
I know, it's a gold mine out there. I should have realised. But I'm pretty happy with those 2 trades. Like, it is vibey, but, Connor Tracy did the business for me. Got some absolute garbage time points at the end there, which I was up and about for sitting beside you. And Ramian was, 53 in base and power. So I think the attacking stats will come there for Ramian. He's been dry. He's been in a massive dry spell from a tries point of view. So I think he's a pretty good look for a trade in if you want someone who's a massive pod. He's like 1% owned. So for now, I've got 12 people for round 12. So the mini buy the week after might be a bit tight because those 2 boys play round 12, but not round 13. So I'll just have to factor that in. I guess the big question this week is what do you do with Sandon Smith if you've got him at hooker? The Riley Smith trade down option is probably not the greatest. Or do you want to bring in a non-playing reserve at hooker? It's probably too early in the year to do that. What my plan's going to be at this stage, I'm just not going to get Smith this week, Riley Smith, that is. What I'm tempted to do is forego Riley Smith in the Thursday game, and then I'm going to VC Kalyn Ponga on Friday night. If Ponga goes big enough, I've got to loop Sandon Smith before the Friday 8 p.m. game with the Broncos on there because I've got Corey Pakes on my bench. So if I'm going to loop, I need to do it between the Knights game and the Broncos game. So you got to roll the dice on updates and down dates and those sort of things. But my thinking is if Ponga does the business versus the Titans on the Friday early game, then I'm just going to hit that loop as early as I possibly can. So that's probably the way I'll play it. And I'll just reassess hooker for next week. If I don't hit the loop, then I guess I'll just trot out Corey Pakes and cop the 15 or 16 or whatever it's going to be in my rolling score there. So that's what it's going to be. In terms of other Supercoach options, my God, Jye Gray looked good on the weekend, Brien. He was probably the one I was like, he's always big, strong, loves an offload. The Jets on the thing, my God, he was like a gazelle there. Like he was nearly matching it pace for pace with Khan Pereira. Like, Khan Pereira had a runaway try, but Carraz was not like ceding a lot of ground to him there. He looked unbelievable on a couple of chase downs the other night. He looked absolutely insane to me. So I was like, Jesus Christ, I've got to find a way to get Jacob Carraz in the team and make that happen. The only other ones that are sort of like maybe on the buy horizon, Britt Nickera and Jaman Hopgood. Jaman Hopgood's still not getting minutes. He's still not getting points. Is he going to play Origin? I got no idea, but he's going to be about 480K after this week, which is insane for a guy of his pedigree and his Supercoach scoring. So maybe one of those guys there. I don't know. It doesn't really feel like a good trade in now just before the buy period. I've got Teddy on buy this week, so I'm sort of watching Tom Trbojevic and Latrell Mitchell very closely because they've got high break even. So I don't think they're bringing this week. And I don't think Drinkies are bringing this week for me, given he's got a round 12 buy. So I think I'll wait and see what New South Wales do. And if Tedesco gets named, he's definitely a sell for me. I'm just going to have to move him on because the Roosters, if he plays Origin, he turns into like a really bad person to hold over that period with the way the buys fall. So I guess in terms of cash grabs, you got like, Patea in the front row there or King Tonga in at 6. But I don't know if they're really cash grab options for me. I think Rob Derby's got a negative break even again. I didn't bring him in. I'm pretty devo about that, actually. I was pretty tempted to do it. But yeah, I went with the points option, I suppose, this week with Ramey and Connor Tracy. And it was enjoyable at Magic Round seeing Connor Tracy score bulk points and get the second try of the game. I was pretty up and about for that. So, yeah, good to see him get a few points for me and my team. And hopefully Ramey can just start to get hot. He's just been without tries for many, many weeks now. So I really want to just see a bit more come his way. So that's my plans for now, Brian. Bit of a boring week this week, though, isn't it? How'd you go?
Yeah, mate, 15:36. I was just behind you, just a little bit of a shitter bloke, which isn't a surprise. I brought in Paul Alamotti, who's calling out to Paul all Sunday, and Dylan Lucas, which I was happy with. Mate, I'm a bit stuck. I want Eli Katoa for sure. The only thing is, that's potentially my only one trade to make, but I'd have to sell Horsburgh or Kickow to him to do it. I don't feel great about either of those options. Horsburgh is an Origin potential, but I'd probably prefer to wait and find out if he's an Origin potential. So the other thing I can do is downgrade to one of those guys, so either Patea or King Tonga. So I go Billy Smith down to, and I can do either or with my duels. So I can go Billy Smith down to either of those guys, and then go Tom Cant up to Katoa, and I probably feel better about that. But I don't know which of the two to do out of Patea or King Togia. So yeah, not really sure. I'll mull on that over the weekend, but I just think Eli Katoa, if you don't own him, he is the most obvious buy this week. Like, I know he's got a buy in round 12, but yeah, that'll be good for him to rest up his finger and those kind of things. I just don't think he's going to get a lower price this year. I'd be shocked if he is. Yeah, maybe if Jerome Hughes needs a week off, that kind of hurts him a little bit, but I just still think he's a gun. So he is my number one. So if there's anyone out there who seems to know whether Patea or King Tonga is going to be the better of those two, let me know. But yeah, otherwise, mate, we may as well finish it there because we need to get to sleep. We've had limited sleep over the last couple of nights. Mate, great Magic Round with you. Great Magic Round with everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for giving the feedback. We just sit here and have a chat, but it's just good to know that there's other people out there. We're not completely wasting our time, which is good. James, mate, till Magic Round next year, I guess.
Absolutely, mate. Like, we'll be absolutely soaked by this time next year. Let's put it that way. Like, that's going to live on in eternity forever because that was just the most unhinged thing I've ever seen. But yeah, what a belter. What a great time. And again, echo your points on that. Thanks to everyone. It's been heaps of fun. Heaps and heaps of fun.
Anyone who's in any of our draft chats got the footage of the messages that guy was sending. But if anybody wants it, reach out and I'll send it to you. It is cracking viewing, that stuff. Just one of the sickest humans going around, I think. But at the footy, good on you. Guys, that's a wrap for this week. If you like the pod, give us a review, recommend to a friend. And as always, up the mighty, mighty Redcliffe Dolphins.
Suspected broken